Good now, revolutionaries, and welcome to Rise Up After Dark. Today is Wednesday, November 27th. It's the day before Thanksgiving for our friends in the U.S., and you are early. It's time to rise up. Woo. For all the folks just joining us, you're used to seeing me with Will and with Alex, but it's Evin flying solo tonight, or I should say not solo. Solo on TikTok, not solo on YouTube. I'm joined by my sister from another mister, another Evin, always a pleasure, Evin McMullen. How you doing, Evin?
GM, another beautiful day on chain. Evin, so delighted and honored to be here with you.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I am so excited for people to get to know you who haven't met you before. I just want to gush about you a little bit. I don't remember when I first encountered your thought leadership, but I think you just have such a gift for making complex topics very clear. And that's something I think we need more of in the crypto space. So I won't waste any time. I would love, before we get into things, for you to tell us who you are and what you do right after I clear up this bit of housekeeping. If you're tuning in for the first time, if you're just seeing my face, Rise Up After Dark is a weekly show where we share helpful news. We model ways to research startup companies, crypto tokens, to help skeptics, the curious, would-be investors, or people who want to build in the crypto space try to figure out, like, what is actually going on here? What is this blockchain stuff? And why does it matter to me personally? And how do I even go about moving around this space safely? If that sounds good to you, then you're in luck, because we're live every week, Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, for Rise Up, the morning show. It's helpful news, commentary, answers to your crypto questions for learners at all levels of experience. You can share us with your grandma at Thanksgiving dinner. And we have so many free resources. You don't have to spend a dime to hang out. No such thing as a stupid question. And learn about what this technology can be and is right now. So to that end, Evin, tell us more about your corner of the internet, the kind of stuff that you're interested in, and what you're working on at Privado.
So at Privado ID, our job is to make it easy for you to show up in any corner of the connected world and to be able to prove traits about yourself that are helpful, whether it's proving where you're located, how old you are, or what type of capabilities you bring to the table. And then you never have to fill out a form again with every application and service on every blockchain and every connected database that utilizes this same technology.
I absolutely love it. Okay, already it sounds better than 99% of all crypto companies. Tell me more.
So we believe that you are more than just a pile of tokens, Evin. You are a whole person who has traits and preferences. You're the host of this show, an educator to many, an expert in subject matters like, decentralized technologies and exploring tokenized capabilities and, discovering new information. So being able to structure and seek new data. All of these are different parts of the way that you present yourself to the world, but none of them are fully described by the number of tokens that are mapped to your wallet.
Absolutely. And so many of the tokens that are in my wallet, you mentioned being like more than the tokens. And often something we say is, your cryptocurrency tokens, they're so much more than just like dollars and cents money. I often tell people that crypto, blockchain, whatever, it's going to be so much more than currency, the way your phone does so much more than calls. And we need projects that help people start thinking about it that way.
Exactly. So in the same way that your phone does more than take calls, your crypto wallet can do more than hold assets. It can also sign messages to prove that you're the person in charge of those keys. And that means you can also prove traits about yourself, like what we were discussing earlier, how old you are, where you live, where you are or are not located, what types of skills or expertise you might have. So at Privado ID, we have noticed a big fragmentation problem, a blocker that makes it tough for apps to get up and running building on a decentralized backend. And that basically is that they have to treat every single user like it's their very first day on the internet. So most apps start off with you filling out a really long form. And that becomes kind of a bummer when you want to explore through the connected world of Web3 applications and use more than one application per day. This also becomes a challenge if you want to use more than one protocol or more than one blockchain, because maybe your token balance can come with you from one place to another, but information about you, like what we just discussed, isn't necessarily going to come along for the ride as easily. So when we talk about chain abstraction, taking the complexity of blockchains away, we want to make that experience a little more simple. Hey, Alex, GM, how's it going?
Hey, Evan, what's up? Good to see you.
It's going to get so confusing this episode, dude, because you're going to be like, no, wait a second, Evin. And I'm going to be like, what? And Evan's going to be like, what? And then we're both going to look at each other like, ah.
I've been looking forward to this all day.
Okay. All right. So let me stop you there. You just threw some $5 words around chain abstraction. I want to break it down and get real simple with some examples. And one of the things I want you to talk about is you've talked before about the math magic of zero knowledge proofs. And we've been talking a lot about ZK proofs this week, right, Al? Like,
yeah,
it's
been coming up a lot.
And it's a highly technical topic, but it doesn't have to be. So can we just start to like break this down on a simple level and say, what is a zero knowledge proof? And what role does it play in Privado or in, this problem of, I want to be who I am. I want you to know stuff about me, but not everything about me. My permission, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Certainly. So as we were talking about earlier, your wallet can carry and control more than just financial value or tokens like NFTs. You can also use your wallet to control who gets to learn what about you. And not just you. These rules can also apply for institutions like governments, for businesses, and even for AI agents. But we can get into those details later.
We talk about that a lot on this show.
Nice. So just like you have had an identity since the day you were born, you didn't ask anyone for permission to get that identity, and it's been building up, being co-created through your experiences your whole life. Evin, it looks like you're vibing with this concept. You realize the universality here. This also applies for AI agents.
Another hot topic, I think, lately. Hearing a lot more about how can we combine agents with X, Y, and Z, and that's basically the way that I always come back to it is like, Jesus, all of this is just like such a desperate cry for some sort of tokenization angle to identification in some capacity. I mean, like as the most sensible crossover between blockchain and AI, like why does AI require blockchain? Requires a strong word, but like why would it be infinitely better with it?
So I think it's a good reminder that accountability requires identity. If you're going to interact with other parties more than one time, it's going to be more efficient for you to remember how those interactions went and to learn from the outcomes of others' interactions. We call this composability. And this allows us to lower the cost or the amount of time and complexity it takes for us to build trust with or understand how best to interact with other parties we may find on chain. So this is sort of how we use or why we want to use more data than just how much money you have, because it helps us understand how to effectively coordinate with other parties, whether you're a person or whether you're an agent. So you asked earlier about zero knowledge proofs. What is a zero knowledge proof? Why does it matter? So fortunately at Privado ID, I have the distinct honor of working closely with some of, I would call them the godfathers of zero knowledge proofs. So folks like Jordi Velina and our incredible engineering team who contributed to libraries like Circom and Snark.js. So basically, this is the code that makes it easy to generate one of these proofs on your phone in a fast and cheap and simple way. And it used to be a few years ago, before these tools, you would have to wait to do this process for like 30 minutes on your desktop computer. So what exactly is this process and why does it matter? A zero knowledge proof is a way for essentially a smart contract or some application logic to ask a question about a set of information without actually seeing that information. And then to be able to learn something about it where the result is sort of a yes or no. Go ahead, Evan. Were you going to ask something?
Well, I just was already going to jump in because I see a couple comments rolling in where people are like, I feel a little behind. And I just want to take it to the example that you gave last time and that I hear a lot of people give, which is your driver's license. If you've ever had the experience of giving your driver's license or your passport or another ID card at like a bar to verify your age, you have experienced the problem of giving up personal data about yourself. All they need to know is, are you old enough to buy a drink or old enough to get in? But in that process of proving your age, you reveal a lot of like potentially vulnerable information about yourself. You might reveal your address, your birthday, and your full legal name. And none of that is really relevant to the question that they're trying to answer. It's sort of a result of using this proxy for verification, which is my driver's license, which honestly can also be, I mean, you know, movies exist about it, forged, faked, lost, stolen, can deteriorate over time. So I just wanted to give people that helpful context to say, oh yes, that is frustrating. Go ahead, Al.
And Evan, we had also just had the conversation that kind of kicked off our like, you know, more discussion about ZK and like the need to break it down for people just because of it's important. With a personal experience, I went to a doctor's office I'd never been to, and immediately the vibe was off. And I was just like, listen, no, like I don't really want, because you're asking so many super invasive questions about medical history. I'm like, none of that is relevant to like what I'm in here to talk to you about. Like, I'm not a doctor, and I can tell you that, like, you know, surgery I had 8 years ago has nothing to do with my current mental state or whatever. So just that need, I mean, like, to be able to parse out access to something as personal as your entire medical history, like for, you know, my oral surgeon or my optometrist doesn't need to see any records from my psychiatrist throughout, you know, my entire life. And it's wild that still at this point we're like, oh yeah, let me just get your entire medical history right now with no holds barred, for someone who you're never going to see again and who really doesn't need access to it. That's
and who might put it on paper later and like make 3 copies of it and hand it off to somebody who could be sad or tired or hungry that day.
Yeah, exactly. Just bearish.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Evan, though we interrupted your explanation. I just wanted to some of the people in the audience were losing it. So take us back to
why does it matter
how it works?
How
does it
apply to you?
No, that's a great example, and I really appreciate you highlighting it. I want to also call out, actually, it was the first time that we heard that example was in 1997 from Professor Larry Lessig at Harvard, noting that we often overshare the amount of information that is required to successfully interact or access a space or a set of content. Using that very example, that when we want to enter an establishment and prove that we are of age, we often end up disclosing or oversharing way too much information with the bouncer, like whether or not we're an organ donor or what our blood type is, which is, like you said, not relevant to the question at hand.
So the random dude at the door of this bar that you're never going to see again that doesn't need your address? Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. And that certainly is a very tangible example. But what if we take that same logic and ask that question about large language models, tools like ChatGPT, and the intimate questions that we ask there? Are we sharing more about ourselves than is necessary for the, you know, output of information that we require, especially when we start to combine different sources of data together that may be beyond our awareness or that we may not realize we're sharing all the time? So
can you give an example of that?
Certainly. So you may remember that in the early days of Facebook, tools like Facebook Connect were really popular as ways to log into different apps. And it turned out that when you share data with one application, it would get shared or actually get reshared across a network of different applications that maybe you had never heard of or you had never interacted with. And it's this sort of long tail of permissions and terms and conditions documents that we often sign away that have really complicated disclosures that make it intentionally complex for us to understand where our data is going. So that brings us back to zero knowledge proofs. What if we could practice what's called minimum disclosure or minimal disclosure, sharing only what's required, sort of sharing your data on a need to know basis instead of sharing a whole bunch of information and only some of it gets utilized to achieve the outcome that you want. So in this re-envisioned case, imagine going up to the bouncer at the front of the bar and him asking, can you prove that you are of age to enter this establishment? And you showing back a thumbs up or a green light.
Okay.
And that interaction being sufficient because you can prove with math that you actually are of the age that's required for this establishment. And you can verify that cryptographically, but you don't actually have to share all of the underlying information. So that's sort of an example of how zero knowledge proofs work in practice. That's actually now possible today with the code that our teams have created nearly, a few decades later.
Wow. Okay. So, but this could work really for anything. This could work for like the profile behind my gaming account on Xbox Live, or it could work for my address if I wanted to like prove I lived somewhere without revealing to you where it was, or just about anything, a medical condition, or a, my religious status, my voting affiliation, all that stuff, basically.
Certainly. In fact, there are thousands of projects live today building with our tools that do, plenty of different things, just as you've described, from being able to capture your chess.com score in a form that you can carry with you to the blockchain that can be read by a smart contract to unlock privileges for you in games or release tokens. All the way to being able to prove in a privacy preserving way that you are a citizen of the nation of India and have a national ID document.
This is being done right now?
Yes.
That's one of the, whoa.
Yep. Yeah, so shout out to the Anand Adhar team. They're the ones who are bringing this technology to the fore in India. Also want to call out the awesome JavaScript SDK and tools that we have for application developers that make it a breeze to be able to incorporate different types of reputations, such as proving where you are located or how old you are, or the fact that you are a unique person.
I'm going to give a point to everyone in India. So that's like, a billion points right there. This is going to be a tough episode to win, guys. That's incredible.
Well, India just won with
zero
chance.
Sorry, China. Today's not your day. Real quick, Evin, I want to talk about Privado more specifically and like some of the things you've done, some of the partners you have. And Alex, that's your cue to maybe pull it up on a screen share. But first, I want to reintroduce you for people who are like, whoa. I thought we were going to do some altcoin research. Listen, pal, we're getting to it. We are talking with Evin McMullen, who is hipping us to zero knowledge proofs, decentralized identities, and the applications for crypto to give you back ownership and control of your data. Talking about Privado ID. And if you have questions for Evin, I saw somebody said, I want to chat with you, Deanne said, I've been fighting this for years. Evin, can I say that the best way to at you is probably on Twitter at Proven Authority? Is that accurate?
Indeed, it is. It is a joke on signed data for those tuning in at home who appreciate a good registry of proven authorities. But yes, I welcome questions and opportunities to discuss always.
Before we get into Privado, can you tell me like how you just quickly, like what made you interested in solving this problem?
So when I was a student, now over 10 years ago, I first had the opportunity to learn about distributed systems in a very academic context from one of my amazing professors. And it was through the exploration of networks like Bitcoin, that became popularized shortly thereafter, that I realized, we're basically looking at a new way of distributing information, of distributing content. That can scale and grow based on the interest in the network, not confined by any, artificial or external forces outside of regulation. So it was through initially academic nerdery and excitement about new ideas that was really a hobby that I first learned about these technical capabilities. Then I had the privilege of several years later working at a company called Consensus that was building out the Ethereum ecosystem.
We've heard of it.
So I had the opportunity to travel around the world and introduce blockchains and smart contracts and their capabilities to governments, to enterprises, to brands that we know and love. And it was through building out early implementations of blockchain technology at scale that it became really clear that we needed some more data about one another on chain and just how many tokens we have.
Very cool. Okay, so this is a fascinating journey, and Alex has got the website pulled up. So I wonder if you could walk us through what we're seeing on screen here and talk a little more about where you are now in this. Privado ID.
Certainly. So with Privado ID, we make it easy for you to prove a trait once and reuse that data and be able to continuously prove that capability anywhere you go in the connected world. So we are responding to the fragmentation challenge created by thousands of layer 2 blockchains, layer 1 blockchains, alt VMs, and legacy databases, each that have different sets of information, sometimes about the same people or the same parties or institutions. And so we are making it much easier, cheaper, and more secure to carry that data with you from one context to another. So you don't have to create another copy of it, to store it in a different place, to expose yourself to more risk by oversharing information, or to create more cost by generating more data that needs to be stored and secured somewhere without a need to do so.
Evin, can you talk really quickly? We just got a comment from Paul Conway. Hey, Paul, welcome to the show. Who says, is this all Web 2 technology or is this Web 3 Ethereum BS? So I'm going to give you a buzzer, Paul. You get a point deducted for that, but I also am going to give you a half a point back because you asked a good question. Evin, can you tell us why this needs to be blockchain in case somebody missed it? And
Paul,
more specifically, how you use it?
That's a really great question. Where does this technology come from? And I would kind of challenge the question a little bit and say that we as humans and also operating as businesses, we are not Web 2 or Web 3 per se. In fact, we use many protocols throughout the day. Most Web 3 businesses are built on what I'd call the internet that involves internet service providers, centralized providers, and a lot of shared infrastructure from centralized front ends and centralized applications and services. So instead, I might phrase the question, or I might humbly rephrase the question in terms of, does this technology stack collaborate or interoperate with data that we might describe as Web 2 or data that we might describe as Web 3? And the answer to that is indeed both. So we build for reality. As we've discussed, human beings and institutions use many protocols throughout their day. And so it's important that data is interoperable in between those apps and services. This means that data that you generate in an application that's based on Ethereum should also work with data that you are creating when you're interacting with applications built on the Linea blockchain or on the Polygon blockchain. In fact, all of that data should go everywhere you do across those different contexts. And now with our smart contracts and tech stack, that is possible. Additionally, we work closely with government regulators and with institutions to make these capabilities accessible to what you also might call legacy systems. So like OG Web 2, to use some of Paul's description there.
Sure.
This means that the grown-ups in the room, some might describe them as, parties that are in charge of identity systems for entire countries, are also down for the tech stack in the same way that the degens are, recognizing that we all live in societies, there are rules, and some amount of risk management and counterparty data verification is essential for a lot of different types of compute, no matter what type of web or flavor of tribe you may describe, these parties as.
I think a lot of this is really worth drilling down on too, just because I'm a big fan of getting, skepticism based questions, just because often they drive at things that Evin and I agree with wholeheartedly. And it's interesting too. I was just telling both of them today that I had an interesting conversation. I have not brain dumped on you yet. That's enough for another time. But just about having a hard conversation with someone who asked me for my opinion of their project, and me having to be like, listen, I love and appreciate you for bringing this to me and asking for honest feedback, but no, you don't need a token for this. You're adding tokens to things that don't need to have them. Here are 30 different examples that are just the ones off the top of my head about how this is going to come crashing down, and I would bet my life savings that this is going to fail. Maybe not immediately, but when it does, here's why, and here's what it's going to look like. And things like that definitely have muddied the water for stuff that genuinely can use pieces of the tech very effectively and very meaningfully for stuff like the identity question. Because again, to the Web 2 versus Web 3 question, two different marketing terms really more than anything. I vividly remember my dad looking at a bunch of this stuff being like, what the hell is this? No, it's literally just using Amazon. What do they mean is decentralized? What does that even mean to them? And it's just it's just not the most helpful way to have the conversation. So I love getting stuff like that pointed out, because it gives it a great opportunity to either be like, oh, got you. Or like, no, listen, here's why you're right, but also I'm right.
Or just, like we're all Internet Explorers, like Paul
Yes.
said a second ago in response to your question. There is no reason we have to separate what we're doing over here from what we're doing over here. It's not you versus me, us versus them, past. Like let's make a productive solution.
We can take cryptographic proof of identity or of token location or something extremely Web3 and display that proof on a Web 2 protocol like Twitter if someone's questioning or wants to see a link to the blockchain explorer to prove like, oh, you actually did this thing at this time.
Yeah.
There's zero reason that the two cannot coexist peacefully.
Yeah, I mean, Evin, I'm sure Evin is hip to, frames and blinks and the things people have done to kind of integrate those. Like those are, I think, great examples. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, certainly. And like one other element to highlight here, I think is exactly as Alex was noting, like this line is getting blurred so much so that, Web 2 entities are now embracing and natively using Web 3 technologies as part of their practice. So, for example, in Europe, there are a whole bunch of new laws that describe the way that businesses are allowed to interact with digital assets. One of those laws is called MiCA, M-I-C-A, if you want to look it up at home. And under MiCA, zero knowledge proofs are actually a legally permissible way of proving certain data for your business's compliance activities. And so this is especially, I think, relevant for us to be aware of because not only are these technologies cool in terms of privacy, but they are also highly efficient in terms of scaling or handling a lot of data at once or translating data from one form to another, being able to prove traits or qualities about it. So it's not just exciting from an evolutionary technical perspective using cool frontier technologies. It's also from a straight up dollars and cents business perspective, cheaper, faster, and more secure to manage data in this way.
Okay, so I keep rug pulling you about the specific products and solutions that Privado is building, and I'm sorry because we have good questions. And I want to get to that right after I reintroduce you by saying, if you're just joining us, we're talking with Evin McMullen, who is just one of my favorite people. Co-founder at Privado. You're a co-founder, right? I didn't mistake that. I'm not retranslating it. So co-founder at Privado after a successful, you guys got acquired at Disco, and it's sort of a merger, right?
We did, yes. So, started Disco a few years ago, and then earlier this year had the good fortune to cross paths with some of our longtime colleagues who are co-founders of the Polygon blockchain and originators of a lot of the zero-knowledge cryptography that we're talking about here today. Okay,
cool. And that's what we're talking about. We're going to get into some topics of the day, but I wanted to give Evin the chance to just really show her expertise and teach us a couple of things. Well, and I've given her 3 points so far, dude, so we got to step it up. Go ahead.
I will also say that Evin gets credit for being the first and only guest of the original podcast to now be back on the show in its current form. And that is pretty cool.
I had to give her another point, man.
You have to, yeah. No,
we got to give you guys some additional points for that. I think the longevity and evolution and quality, really excellence of the way y'all break these topics down and bring them to a global audience is, so vital to all of the work that we're doing here and bringing context and meaning to the technical stuff that, that our team spends all day doing.
Listen, twist my foot, but okay, I'll give us each a point for that. And I also am going to give a point to just scrolling in the comments who said regarding zero knowledge proofs and the importance and ease of use. That's good because crypto bros are all about zero knowledge.
This is a gross misrepresentation of
that's
that.
Actually,
that comment that's a winner right there, dude. I gotta try to let me pull up this thing and see if I can screen share this meme that Casey had sent me because she was at a ZK talk in Thailand. Her last.
Our friend Casey is at Zuzulu right now.
Yeah.
After DevCon, so
Zuzulu, the home base of the Zoo Pass, a zero knowledge cryptography based identity, experience application layer that's actually built using some of the libraries we were talking about earlier.
No way.
Yes. Yeah. So, we are proud to be the backbone of many ZK experiences throughout the universe. Oh my gosh, Alex. Casey at Privado ID. We are huge Casey stans.
Do you know Casey?
Love Casey. Oh my gosh.
I love it. Oh, that's fantastic. How do you know Casey?
She is the, face of like poise and message delivery at scale for decentralized technology with the polish and professionalism of, global media organizations. Man, I look up to her with her name on that lower third, talking about, everything from Bitcoin to the decentralized application ecosystems we're here to discuss today.
Well, she is getting a point for that. She's one of our occasional guest hosts on the show, a real good friend of ours, and one of the only people with a TikTok profile that we confidently say you should go listen to and learn from this person. So I love that you guys know each other. I think that's just fantastic.
Most certainly. I'm a huge Casey fangirl and definitely, appreciate the approach that she has for the market. Not only very technically rigorous, but also incredibly accessible.
Yeah,
no, she's
100%.
Yeah, Casey's great. Someone who can literally sit in on a ZK project and hang with everyone, even though she will say that she feels outclassed and outsmarted by everybody in the room, and then go have the most degenerate, deep meme trench conversation with absolutely anyone else 5 seconds later, and then bring the ZK bros and the meme bros together and explain to them why they are really on the same team and should be working together in a way that all of them will leave it going like, oh, hey, you know what? She was right. She was right about that.
Casey has this analogy about, she shared with us about burgers and buns. She talks about how a lot of content in our space is designed to reach the people who are the burger, the meat, who are building, who are actively developing, and how important it is for us to also curate content for people who are the buns, the people who will hear about this stuff on the news or at Thanksgiving dinner, or who will try to use it to benefit themselves in some way, but who might be turned off because, the bun falls apart. It's not substantial enough to really bring the meal together. And I love a good analogy, even more when it has to do with food, So yeah, bullish on Casey. And let me just say, we're getting back to Privado. I got to have you tell me what it is. I got to have you tell me what it is now that we're done fangirling.
Start telling us what it is one more time.
What is it actually? And I won't interrupt you, I promise.
One more time.
No, all good. This is actually a Casey Craig fan podcast, but I digress. So Privado ID is a platform and set of protocols that make it really easy for your crypto keys to prove more about themselves than just how much money you have, to prove traits about your preferences, your personality, and what other authorities like governments or businesses have to say about you. And so this means you can carry this data from one protocol to the next, reusing it in applications that are built on different blockchains without feeling the friction of switching from one to the other. What this means in practice is that our open ecosystem of many different sources of reputation, many different types of reputation, many different blockchain ecosystems where you can use it, is a very different model to the monopolistic, centralized approach to identity that we've often seen before, where you have one source of identity and one credential, such as you are a person, and one blockchain or one ecosystem where that's relevant. And we like to, build for reality where there are multiple countries, there are multiple blockchains, multiple systems. And so it's important for us to incorporate all of them to have value in a reputation model.
Okay. And what does it look like if I want to use it and interact with it? Like, I'm hearing about this. I think it's really cool. I'm a country or I'm a citizen or whatever. Like, what do I do? How do I start using it and benefit?
So often you'll see Privado embedded inside of your favorite applications and services. For example, if you are undergoing a KYC process to participate in financial services with banks like HSBC or Deutsche Bank, you might fill out some forms online, and on the back end, Privado ID is making it easy for you to take custody of a proof that you are on that KYC list and carry it with you to blockchain-based interactions or other apps.
Very cool. Very cool. Are there any use cases that you can talk about now? I saw it was on your website. I love that it's there, that you're building actively, that you're particularly excited to see come to fruition.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think there are definitely a lot in motion. And then there are also some cool ones coming up that we can talk about. So right now, we actually are supporting a number of ecosystems that are in the process of defining who's going to receive their upcoming airdrops and identifying ways to measure and keep track of active contributors to their blockchain ecosystems. So identifying who's using their apps, who's deploying code in their various different marketplaces. And one of the ways that you can participate and qualify for these privileges is to prove that you are indeed a unique person who is behind the address doing these actions. So we worked with our colleagues over at Linea, the blockchain that comes from the team at Consensus, to help them include one of these proofs of humanity in the process of qualifying for their airdrop.
Nice. I'm sorry, I was not blowing you a kiss. That was really awkward. I realized the love of my life and my fiance was in the audience. And she, surprise, and she sent me a gift. And so I just wanted to say thank you, Kimberly. I love you. And Alex, maybe my work husband, but you're my partner. So sorry for making it awkward with a blow of a kiss and a gush.
It was just a really good point about zero knowledge. So
it was a really good point. But listen, man, when it's the one, when it's your love, you gotta kill the point to make the point. You know what I'm saying? It's my show, damn it. Come on.
That it is. So to make the point, why we love zero knowledge proofs here.
Yes.
When you bring data from one space to another, you don't want to expose it to the public. You don't want to carry it, out in an exposed manner. You want to make sure that you maintain the control that you started with when you bring it to a new environment. And so a zero knowledge proof allows you to prove traits about that data without ever exposing it, regardless of where else you want to take it, where else you bring your keys or your wallet.
Excellent. We do have a couple of audience questions here, as you can maybe see on the screen. Alex, you pulled this one up from our friend. Whoa, damn it! How is the info someone enters in their identity fact checked before it goes to the blockchain?
Great question. So how do we make sure that people are not lying on the internet?
Well, they don't do that, first of all. It's not a problem that we need to worry about.
Yeah, Alec, you make a great point. I think Evin would agree. No one has ever lied on the internet before. So when we discuss this very hypothetical situation, no, this is actually a really important point, right? How verifiable is the content of the data that's being proven? And so I think this helps us to get into a broader question of who has authority to say what about whom? Who do we believe to be experts in different subject matter? So this kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier with signatures. When a piece of data is signed by the party that says it in this reusable encrypted form from which we can create zero knowledge proofs and prove things about ourselves, when that original data is created, it makes it sort of pretty straightforward for any party in the future to see or to understand who signed it. Where did it come from? So in the same way that your driver's license is signed or comes from the Department of Motor Vehicles, similarly, every credential or every piece of data that you manage in Privado is signed by the party that it came from. So it is up to every application where you take that data to decide whether the signer is an authority or is expert in that subject matter. This becomes kind of tough at scale. And so we have what are called issuer registries. You can think of this kind of like the on-chain phone book. So there are different sections or different lists of authorities that are expert in different subject matter, making it a little bit easier to discover which authorities you want to be accepting signatures from, or which on-chain DMVs credentials you would like to accept in your app or service.
And what about the tough problem? Someone in the comments said, so the movie theater is going to find out that my kids aren't under 12? What about that? Like, if somebody says, hey, you have to reveal this thing to me or I won't let you play in my private business or establishment.
So
like, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing, maybe.
This is a really interesting question because it is also the same question that we ask when we look at what happened with Pump.Fun shutting off their live stream feature the other day when there were young children who were exposed to content and also generating content that violates a variety of different laws in certain jurisdictions.
For people who don't know
everything that can be violated.
Yeah. We can't even mention some of this stuff on live TV on TikTok without getting banned. But just so you know, I mean, it involved everything from violence to indecency to it was really wild what people were doing to generate.
There were straight crimes being committed on live stream, and like victims of them being like held at the threat of more crimes if certain meme coins did not hit certain market caps. It was atrocious.
Yeah.
It was heinous.
So sorry, please continue, Evin. I just, I want people to know, like, it was real and it was wild.
Just because the back end protocol infrastructure of our applications in the Web3 and Web3 adjacent space, just because we have access to censorship resistant protocol technology does not mean that all possible content that can be expressed in a digital form is legal and permissible to surface at the screen interface level to all users of the connected internet everywhere. We live in a society, there are rules, and everywhere your site or application is available and provided as a service, you are obligated to abide by the rules and management of that particular jurisdiction. But there's kind of this like unspoken weird tension where it's actually kind of expensive to learn how to be compliant with laws. And it's kind of complicated and kind of hard. And so a lot of small businesses will say, forget it on the compliance front. Let's just rip it. Let's just not build age-based access control. Let's just not have content moderation. Let's just kind of go wild. And then, if our project is successful, we'll figure it out later. And that's exactly what we're starting to see happen. However, at Privado ID, we want to tell everyone there's actually another way. You don't have to stress about these sorts of things. We have simple SDKs or code that you can add to your app where we can take the guesswork out of asking users how old they are and checking and making sure that they're reputable sources to prove how old they are or what location they're in or the fact that they have certain traits. So hopefully that process is getting a lot easier and a lot friendlier. And we've got a few thousand different projects in position to be able to describe how they're doing so.
Very cool.
Awesome.
If you have questions for Evin, then please leave them below in the chat. I do want to remind you again that you can get in touch with her on Twitter. Her handle is @ProvenAuthority, and we are talking about Privado ID. All this stuff is stuff you can go play around with and check out and learn more about now, and I'm sure they'd love to hear from you. I want to give everybody in the audience a chance to ask you some more questions about this, but I'd love to kind of switch topics. Alex, I was telling Evin that we like to answer people's questions and we take a look at projects, we sniff some tokens, we give our takes and share some thoughts on the news of the day. But how can people, aside from the website or contacting you, is there anything that you'd recommend they do right now to start learning more or getting involved in like playing in this sandbox?
Definitely. I would encourage them to visit us at privado.id. And if you want to experience firsthand what it feels like to carry around some data to prove that you are a human to an application, you can actually download our native application. And if you're building a wallet or an app, we definitely have some code for you that can take the guesswork out of using these tools in a more embedded fashion. But if you check out use cases, for example, that'll walk you through the story of a few different teams that are leveraging our technology and make it a little bit more visible and simple to understand.
Awesome. Very cool. I want to show everybody on TikTok your website. I'm doing the dual camera thing. Evan got rugged by TikTok earlier, but this is where it is.
An identity challenge getting rugged by TikTok. But, this is always a good reminder that the audience and the name and the account that we create on one platform isn't necessarily going to work collaboratively with the other platform, as evidenced by other Evin and his two screens right now.
Tell me why. That's all I want to know, So, okay, I want to remind everybody that this is the show where the rules are made up and the points don't matter, like that one show you love on TV. Evin has 4 points right now. Alex and I have 1. The country of India has 1 point per person, and Just Scrolling got 1 for a zero knowledge crypto bro comment. There's still lots of time for you to win some points, for you to ask your questions. And I'd love to get into some of the things that folks asked us about in the Discord. Now, if you're like, hey, crypto people on TikTok, I want to ask you a question, then you're in the right place. You can ask us your questions anytime, but tonight we are really focused on answering questions from the folks who have gotten in touch through our Discord server. It's the place we invite people to connect as a community. It's totally free. And we like to invite people to ask there just because it's a lot easier to catalog, organize, coordinate our answers, that kind of thing, and get to know each other, because there's just, it can feel like drinking from a fire hose learning this stuff, and it's a lot easier with other people. So if you're looking for folks who can answer some questions, can share what they know, who aren't going to try to sell you something, that's the place to be. It's discord.gg/riseup. We would love to hear your questions, look at your altcoin picks or your crypto projects or your wallet and how it works. That's the place to do it. And you can find all the links for our YouTube channel where this show will be recorded, for our newsletter, for the PDF guides we have, and so much more. The riseupmorningshow.com. Everything is there. The only thing that's missing is you. So Evin, are you game to give some commentary on a couple of these things and give us your impression as like a founder and hanger outer in the space? Do you have a little more time?
Let's go.
Oh, let's go. I'm giving her a point for that. Go ahead, Alex.
To kick it off, I'm actually going to say everything Evin just said was wonderful, but I'm going to rug him and ask Evin one more question, just because there was a really good comment that rolled in that I think we kind of already answered. I don't think we need to go super in depth, but maybe just to kind of address a little piece of nuance. So we gave the example earlier of you potentially needing to do something like prove that you're of legal drinking age to enter an establishment and not wanting to show the arbitrary guy at the door your home address, your height, weight, all of these other things like personal details that come with your driver's license, driver's license number, all these different things. What if, and this is kind of think one of the beauties of like the way that ZK can be built and used, someone else needs to get access to your driver's license and has a legitimate need to get more information from it, like a police officer who is conducting an investigation and needs to see a piece of identification. So of course, two things. One, and Evin, I would like you to correct me anywhere that I misstep as I say this, and then I'm curious to get your thoughts how maybe a little bit more technical on it. First of all, with a cop asking for your ID, you can just show them the ID, right? Like you don't have to. But I think an interesting piece of nuance here would be that another problem with police officers and access to your ID is that it's not always warranted. And sometimes it's sort of like threatened and it seems like you may not have a choice, but it's another instance of like people not being super well read on their own rights in specific situations. And I think that something like this could theoretically eventually be used to like help people navigate that interaction in a way where like some sort of burden of actual need would be put on the person of authority, in this case the officer, who needs to say like, I need access to this ID because XYZ, and force like articulation or proof of legitimate probable cause or reasonable suspicion in a position to like get that information from you, but it could be protected and like harder to bully out of you for your like unknowing. I just think that's kind of an interesting. I've never thought about it until Antoine just left that comment about like police getting access to your driver's license.
And Evin, somebody also asked about paramedics. Like if you're incapacitated and you have a, please resuscitate me order, but I can't get your medical history without your express consent, will we have a presumed consent, like a dead man switch?
I think both of these examples are really pertinent to real life ways in which this technology is super important. And in fact, Alex, I wouldn't necessarily call the scenario you're describing far off in the future. This is actually being implemented in the city of Buenos Aires over the next quarter. So exactly, what of our thoughtful community members was calling out as a potential hypothetical, that is for real happening in Buenos Aires, where drivers will be able to present a QR code and law enforcement officers will be able to scan that QR code and determine whether that driver is indeed licensed in a valid way to drive in that particular region. So one of the things that you didn't mention that is still really important about licenses is state management. In the same way that we have it on chain, determining whether or not your license is valid is something that is not going to be reflected in the printed license itself, but something that may change over time.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I mean, obviously so many implications there, but just with the ability to do that scan, is like maybe this is now access to different information than the bouncer would need to let you into a facility. But like the fact that can all be managed in a much easier way where the end result doesn't just have to be, hey, sorry, user, give all your personal information to literally everyone that could possibly need any single piece
Well, it's also like, it's a ton of work on that bouncer, or it's a ton of work on the law enforcement officer. Like, IDs might look different. They might be shaped different. They might be written in different languages. They may not all take the same form factor. And as you noted, some may even be counterfeit. And so taking the guesswork out of determining, does your data fit my requirements? Instead of asking, hey, give me all of your data and I'll sit here and parse through it and figure out, field by field, whether this is what I need. It can just save us a lot of time and complexity interacting with one another when we can simplify those access controls and utilize, new technology to make that work a little bit easier.
Yeah. I gave a whole point to everyone in Buenos Aires too. So they're behind India, but we're all losing to Buenos Aires in India. And that prompts the question, like, when they are winning so hard, is anybody losing really? And I think the answer is no. I think we're all winning. I think we're all going to make it.
We are all absolutely winning. And I want to shout out my colleague and friend, Diego Fernandez, and his team at Quark ID, who built the open source wallet that the citizens of Buenos Aires, now over 200,000 of them, are able to carry around their digital credentials in, from driver's licenses to coming soon diplomas, things like, vaccination records, and be able to present those not only to, folks like law enforcement officers and public servants, but soon to applications in the decentralized web.
Wow. This is killer. I mean, this is so much proof. Something people ask when they're like new or they're just getting in, especially when they're like speculating on crypto companies. I'm choking on Caesar salad too. Is they want to know, like, how do I vet? All this technology is so new, and so it seems, because of the language, like a little intimidating, even though those kind of things are familiar to us. We deal with those problems every day. But we talk a lot about, like, how do you find proof in the pudding? Some people in the crypto space, especially on a place like TikTok, they're like gamblers at a horse racing track. And then there are some people who are like the people who write for the newspapers. They are like professional bettors, and they work here, so they're paying attention every day, but they're also gambling. And then there are the people who like groom the horses and they, train them, or they provide for the stables. Those are the people building the infrastructure of the track. And then there are the people who are standing at the racetrack and it's 1900 and they're Henry Ford and they're thinking, what'd be really cool is a motorized horse. And what'd be even cooler is roads. And then if every family had a personal automobile, and then we could have grocery stores and hospitals. And So I like connecting the dots for people to help them understand that people who are building stuff that others use, that is like, no matter what you're going to bet on, that is the way to like build value and wealth. And you really don't have to spend money to start learning about things like that. You don't have to gamble to start learning about things like that. So thank you for that example. I'm so stoked about it. Honestly, we can end the show and go home right there after Buenos Aires leads the path to get us all on chain. We do have a couple of questions that roll into around this. Like, would an ID service like this be purchased? Would it be a subscription, or is this like a basic human right? Do you see it that way, that everyone will have access to it?
So we see these technologies as sort of built under the hood to our favorite apps and services. Today, we see sources of reputation from governments to banks to brands utilizing Privado ID instead of traditional databases. So from a user perspective, it's nearly invisible, pretty low key in terms of their actual experience. Although things work a little bit faster, a little bit smoother, they have to leave their applications a little bit less, and are able to stay in the experiences that they intended to start off in when they got out of bed this morning and went to the internet.
I'm sorry, I'm scrolling here because I had another question and I lost it. Do you have it, Alex?
Well, just from our friend property lawyer, it was bringing up a couple really interesting points that I feel like.
And Jillian is a real lawyer, so she's an expert here.
Yeah, no, she's great. Jillian, so I know you're struggling against the character limitations in a TikTok comment length. So please correct me if I misphrase this, but so Evin, as we were kind of talking about, like the joke, with like, oh, well, crap, now AMC is going to know that my kid is 13, not 12.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting point about just like the implications against someone's both Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights with regards to this, and kind of the difference between the implications of having this data be like readily available to someone inquiring. I could totally see making it harder to have your Fourth Amendment rights infringed upon, which would be like an illegitimate search and seizure based on bad information or misrepresenting probable cause or something like that. Overreach of police authority, that kind of thing. However, I think it's probably a fair criticism to say the right in the Fifth Amendment, the right against self-incrimination. That's kind of an interesting quandary, I feel like, with this kind of stuff. I'm curious. I'm literally thinking about this right now for the very first time, so I'm kind of like chewing on it. But
I'm curious to know what we could verify or wouldn't verify. Like I don't know, if I took a drink and then went driving, that's probably not a credential that's going to be unchecked. Maybe it would be a credential that I bought 3 drinks at a bar. I think,
and the way that I'm thinking about this would be like, okay, if you're driving a car and your license is suspended and you're still driving it anyway, and that suspension would be flagged on this kind of driver QR code that could be scanned, you would, as an American citizen, have the right to refuse to answer the question whether or not you have a suspended license and force the running of it and force someone to have to be able to prove, yes, I have reasonable suspicion or probable cause to run this check on you, which without would be an illegal search, Fourth Amendment violation. Therefore making the finding of even a suspended driver's license inadmissible in court. And Jillian, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do feel like I remember this part at least. Then just scanning a barcode on the windshield of the car or something like that would remove your ability to say, that you don't consent to questions and you're going to like force this to go. Because I mean, even if you get pulled out, I remember I was in this situation specifically when I was working with a police department. Pull over someone who's so obviously drinking and driving. I mean, like you can smell it. They literally ran off and flipped the car over or whatever, and they're sitting on the chassis of their upside down car, that kind of thing. But refuse to admit it. Doesn't matter. Have to get a warrant. Doesn't matter. Have to take them to the hospital. Doesn't matter. Have to do a blood draw. Whatever. So Jillian, if I misphrased or misrepresented any of that, please let me know. But that's an interesting one. So I guess giving access to the code to be scanned would have to be like up to you to present, like, here's the thing that you would want to see or look at. Like, here is the piece of me to scan or whatever. Like, I'm consenting to letting you check this cryptographically proven thing, or I'm going to withhold that. And then you can infer from that whatever, but carry out due process.
And Jillian says here, this technology just allows for more abuse. You are on point. Evin, do you have a response or thought to that?
Right now, in the absence of tools like zero-knowledge proofs being accepted around the world, even here in the United States, we are already experiencing what I would consider to be gross overreaches of privacy and civil liberties. So, for example, there are some states that require proof of age be submitted in order to access adult content websites. And that proof of age can be accepted in the form of a utility bill, a scan of your passport, and is stored by the adult content website itself in their servers, in their control. And so unless we want to be, required to sprinkle copies of passports in order to access adult content anywhere, a separate one every single time you access, any kind of restricted content, I think that paradigm introduces a lot of risk where we are asking content sites to do actions that they're not used to, which is secure very, very sensitive data and prove certain traits about their users. Now, I think the objective of protecting children and of abiding by, content moderation, content safety, and, and regulation parameters, I think those are all, valid pursuits. But the lack of more nuanced technology, like what we're working on at Privado ID, has meant that we end up with really inelegant solutions that already violate some of those sort of rights and controls that we want to protect.
So it's basically what I'm hearing you say is like it's a problem right now. We're actively trying to solve it with tools like this. It's an ongoing thing. Like nobody's got the magic bullet solution yet.
We have seen a lot of overreaches of ham-fisted, imprecise, messy potential, attempts at solutions. And sometimes those attempts to keep us more safe, such as securing data about our credit scores, ends up in a giant honeypot of data like Experian that gets leaked. And so really, poor data structuring and management practices have gotten us this far. And so tools like zero knowledge proofs and, decentralized identity systems provide us both a more business efficient and secure way to backpedal from the mess that we've made out of our current technology stack.
Okay. I wanted to say this is an apropos question because you're wearing this privacy hat, which I love. And for people who don't know Evin, I have to tell you, especially for people who can't see you on TikTok, I wanted to show this. Evin has got some drip. Evin wears really fantastic clothes all the time. I've seen you 2 or 3 times in the wild. But I saw you tweet this the other day. Is this a custom piece that you had? I want to show everybody on TikTok this jacket that you have that says, "No one gets Lambos till we all get Lambos." Lest you think Evin is just, Evin is a big brain, but also clearly in tune with the DGen spirit. Is that a custom piece?
I appreciate that call out so much. No, it is not a custom piece, although I have to give all credit to our colleagues over at Meta Factory, the artists behind on-chain attire, such as this, which actually has a cool patch on the arm, which you can't see just out of frame, that associates an NFT with this unique or fairly unique garment. So there are many like it, but this one is mine, and really love wearing that as a practical piece of rainwear that also reminds us that blockchains are multiplayer games and it's not worth getting anywhere if we don't get there together.
Nice callback to Fannie Lou Hamer, by the way, that's kind of cool. And then I just wanted to show the people on TikTok, this is Evin. So give them a wave real quick. She's a good friend. So yeah, that's super cool. Give me the name of that company one more time that does that? Meta Factory. Do you know if they have their own proprietary solution, or are they partnered with somebody like IYK?
So Meta Factory and their connected garments, I believe, precede the existence of IYK. Although cool. IYK's technology and capabilities, I'm sure, have made their way to intertwine with future creations from the folks who are involved in those projects.
I'm always curious about that. One of our friends works at IYK, and that's one of the problems. We were talking with somebody at a company called Instruxy recently, our friend Matthew, about how do you create, he calls it the golden thread of provenance between a physical thing and its digital twin in the world.
It's an identity problem.
It's an identity problem.
Evin, it's an identity problem. No, let's hang on to that for a quick second though. Because what we're really asking is what happens when you cut the tag off the jacket? Yeah. Then, right. Any interactions with the NFC chip embedded inside of that patch, it implies that interaction with the chip means interaction with the jacket and the same jacket. This is the same question that we ran into in 2017, 2018 at Consensus when we were talking about NFTs for supply chains and embedding NFC chips in tags that we would put on fish for sushi and tracking them. Exactly, tracking them from their origin. We had the same question. What happens if you cut the tag off the fish? And it's this question that made it really clear to me that in a supply chain, when we are talking about provenance, we're not really keeping track of what the object itself does. That jacket can't tell us anything. It's a literal jacket, Evin. It can't say anything because it's literally a jacket. I know it sounds silly for me to say, but I think it bears reminding us that what we're really keeping track of is the actions of humans and objects that interact with this jacket and what they do, whether they pick it up and move it from one place to another, or whether they resell it, or whether they, separate the NFC chip from the original object. And so without the ability to keep track of who those parties are around the asset and give them some sort of reputation to have consequences or accountability for their actions, we're going to have this same problem or the same question. What happens when you cut the tag off the fish or the jacket?
Well, and since we're on the identity train, let's go deeper down the rabbit hole. I have for a long time wanted to do a performance that invites people to consider, like, what is the identity in a world where you could pair a token with a thing or create a token to represent something, even something intangible. The 100 hours of work I did to plant 100 trees, or to represent some blood I drew from my body and put in a vial. The hair, when I cut this hair off my head and I create a token for it. If I have a token, that's forever. The Ethereum blockchain could go down, but we're going to put it back up. Hypothetically, it's going to last a lot longer than the hair, a lot longer than the blood. I will die, and the effort it took me to plant those trees and the leaves and the seeds and the roots will all pass away. But the token will be forever. And what is the thing? And which is more valuable? The one which is ephemeral, or the one that is forever, even if one is real and one is, doesn't physically exist? I think that's a question we're going to have to start grappling with sooner or later. And like the constraints of what is possible to own, to possess. I don't know. Honestly,
Evin, it's not as complicated. It's not as complicated as you think, man. I think
take it there.
Value is what we agree on. Full stop.
You paused because you knew I was going to give you a point.
Well, no, I wanted to like let that hit for a second because it's very simple. Yeah. But it applies to currency, it applies to resale value of limited edition jackets, and it applies to the way that we feel about our on-chain assets.
Yeah. Phew. Okay. I need to breathe for a second. Alex, I know you're keeping track of the comments.
Yeah.
What have I missed while I've been jumping down the identity rabbit hole with Evin over here? We're just Evin and out.
No, it's good. I'd like to make probably a moment to talk to Jillian again just about this, just to understand the full thing, and then kind of bring up some of those concerns. And Evin, I'm sure we can connect again to go through some of these things, because I do think there are some genuinely good concerns that would be really, I think, probably beneficial to include in the messaging around just ZK in general when it comes to the rights to privacy, the various rights afforded to us by the Constitution, and how they could be impacted one way or the other by just the changing of this technology. Like, as more things come out, Jillian brings up a really good point that actually I just had a conversation about today as well, that oftentimes, we get into the money conversation, we forget about the broader implications of like the technology in general. And I just think it's worth constantly like bringing us back to that point to remember and consider as we move this stuff forward, because we don't want to, get away from it. I was talking to a project earlier today that was talking about something for farmers, and immediately I was just like, you guys hear how you just described that to me, right? Like you want to sell farmers your pyramid scheme, and
it was like a token.
Yeah, it was awful. I was like, they got enough to worry about. Like, please don't do this. Please tell that person to call me, and then I'll fix it for them. But like, this is not the way.
Cryptocurrency is just one of many use cases for cryptography.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a really good reminder that capital efficient flows exist in many different forms, but user value is often a great choice when we think about what we want to build toward, what we want to perpetuate, what we want to scale. And first, a lot of these technologies are experiments that are closer to toys than they are real sustainable systems. So I think we have not seen the last of these toy-like suboptimal designs, but hopefully they will give way to more sustainable networks overall.
And do you have any, obviously we're standing on the shoulders of the giants here. Like, this is something people, including yourself, have obviously thought and talked a lot about. So do you have any further recommendations for somebody like Jillian, who is a legal expert and really is concerned and would like to get hip to, some of those conversations and maybe lend her voice to them?
Oh, most definitely. If you are getting the ick from overreach or an absence of technical literacy or awareness when it comes to conversations around consent and content distribution networks, there are actually a few organizations that are doing really awesome work to pave the way for what technology we're seeing in action and the way that our regulators are engaging. A couple that I would call out specifically include the Decentralized Identity Foundation, or DIF, which is a gathering of many different entities, both in the Web3 and in the very traditional or more traditional Web2 space, many that you've heard of, as well as the creators of a lot of these technical standards. And in addition to that, I also want to call out a specific government or sort of institutionally affiliated working group that's really awesome called the Bank for International Settlements, or BIS. They've got chapters all over the world that work with banks and sort of sovereign financial parties and help them coordinate better using decentralized technology and take into account a lot of these regulatory concerns to build solutions that work with, not against them.
Excellent. So we'll put those in the show notes: Decentralized Identity Foundation and the Bank of International Settlements. That's definitely something we would love to get people in touch with. Evin, one of the projects that got submitted in our Discord that somebody was like, "Hey, I've been looking into this and I'd like to learn more about it, and I feel like it could be interesting, controversial to get your take on," is what do you think about optimism? What do you think about the different approach to rollups? We don't have to get too technical into the differences between like optimistic rollup and a ZK. But what do you think about the work that Optimism is doing? Do you have an opinion on it? And do you know anybody over there who's working to solve the problems that they're building?
Oh my gosh. So I have the privilege of knowing a number of folks over in the Optimism ecosystem, actually having known them since I was like basically a teenager. One of my classmates is over at Optimism. Bobby Dresser has served as the managing director of the Optimism Foundation, among other roles, and was my colleague and teammate over at Consensus many moons ago as well. I also, have had the good fortune of meeting Mark and Jing, who are co-founders, and being able to learn and build alongside folks like Mark and Benji, who are more on their ecosystem and DeFi side. But we're, close collaborators with and partners of many in the OP stack, OP proper, as well as the different rollups and communities that they support. So I have many hot takes on rollups and why I think ZK is the end game. But I think that the massive swings that they've taken, the huge progress they've made toward adoption, and everyone from Ryan Wyatt to Jesse Pollock's creative leadership and scaling the community is just something to be applauded.
Very cool. I can't remember, Alex. Do you remember who it was who asked about that? Because I can look and pull it up, and we can see if there's more context for that question too. For people who don't know, there are a number of. We described it the other day. Layer 2 solutions that are building on the Ethereum network. You can think of blockchain if you're totally new. One model I've found helpful is to think about it like a city. New York is a city, and it's got a lot of stuff. Dallas is a city. It's got a lot of stuff, but you might go to a city like Midland, where I grew up, and you got a couple of things. You got a theater and you got some restaurants, but it's mostly cornfields. It's a company town. And different blockchains, just like different cities, build out different architecture depending on the kind of things they envision people will do there. And it is difficult and expensive to live in a city like New York, where there is a lot of congestion, there is a lot of demand, there is a lot of traffic. You have a long way to go, maybe not necessarily geographically, but maybe you got to get in an elevator and then a taxi and then go through security to get to the club. It's costly to get out. Ethereum as a network can be costly like this. And so there are people building on top of this network city, erecting what might be compared to skyscrapers. We call them layer 2 networks. And these are places that assemble sort of businesses and goods and services in one convenient location. If you live in a high rise in New York City, you might have a grocery store or bodega on the bottom floor. You might have a barber. You might have a club or a restaurant. You might have a gym. All these things that are cheaper, easier, more convenient for you to go to because they're in proximity to you. They solve the scaling problem of New York City. And Optimism is just one of many companies doing that, and they have a lot of great ideas, and they have a lot of good attention. And I think one of the interesting things about them is this sort of narrative that's emerged, the super chain. Optimism and their proprietary OP stack are a foundational part of Coinbase's layer 2 base. There's a lot of activity, a lot of attention, a lot of capital flowing in that direction right now. And so if you're somebody who is looking to be like learning, speculating, building, I would say that's a really good place to look further because, it's like a big sky-rise building in a city like New York. There is much to uncover there, and many people are paying attention. Alex, Evin, I don't know if you have thoughts to add on that might help somebody who's thinking about what to know about optimism.
I think, you could think of the chains in the OP stack, or the different protocols they have, kind of like the result of affiliate marketing for the OP stack code itself. So the sort of oath of allegiance between these different protocols includes some financial incentives, as well as shared value, shared interoperability in some ways. What I think is super cool about the OP stack is they've basically ossified or hardened or proven over time by securing a lot of value and a lot of users, a lot of transactions, that their code works really well. And so then it really lowers the complexity and cost of building a blockchain yourself and makes it a lot more accessible to iterate and be innovative in this space.
I'm sorry. I had as you were saying that, I wanted to apologize to you because we had a guest join us in the chat on the other, and it was Casey Craig.
Oh my gosh, Casey!
But tell her, Alex.
Dude, okay. First of all, the fact that I think we might have a case of mistaken identity on this particular episode is absolutely wild. Because this is, of course, our good friend who is a behemoth in the crypto space, Casey Craig. But I have a feeling, are you talking about the former CoinDesk comms Casey Craig?
Oh, that was my Casey Craig that I was talking about. But
Yeah.
If you guys have a separate Casey Craig,
there's two Casey Craigs in crypto, and I'm just fine. I was today years
It's
old
just like
when
there's
I
two
found out.
Evans on the show.
oh my gosh. Well, I'm so excited to have as much love and enthusiasm and awareness of the other Casey Craig's work. My immediate reaction was thinking of the other Casey Craig, but both Caseys, we love you.
Well, the way
First
you were
of all-
talking about the other Casey Craig, honestly, a lot of the same stuff applies. Articulate,
that's why I didn't even
professional,
consider it. So I'm like, yeah, that's exactly who Casey
course,
is and what she
that's our
does. And
Casey.
she's literally like spreading
Incredible.
the good word so like the fact that we just did the thing that they do on sitcoms where you are both having the two different conversations with the same person. So first of all, what you need to do, Evin, is call the other Casey Craig. Let's get both Casey Craigs.
No, dude, the
show
first thing I'm
with
doing
two
is I'm giving
Evans.
us all a point for that to help us cope.
Oh my God. Just what are the odds?
We are
That's wild.
highlighting yet another unique challenge of identity, friends.
Holy shit.
Seriously.
That's so hilarious. I love it.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Okay, we got a really good question to bring us back.
Yeah.
From somebody who wants to start to learn from scratch about blockchain, about cryptocurrency, about the future of the internet, all of this. What's the best place to start here with us? And then Evin, give us your best resources too. I would say for our channel, the resources that we have here, we've got a great ecosystem of people, learners at all levels of experience, and they gather in a couple places. So the number one place is right here on live streams like this one. We're live 4 mornings a week, Monday through Thursday at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time for the Rise Up Morning Show. And then we go live on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. for Rise Up After Dark. We share helpful news, commentary, interviews with expert guests like Evin, and answers to your crypto questions. And it's all totally free. The only thing that's missing is you. And the other thing to do is check out the Discord server. It's discord.gg/riseup. It's totally free to join. And if you've never joined Discord before, it can be intimidating, but we've tried to make this server very bare bones. It's kind of like a Facebook group. And I have a tutorial video that is pinned to the top of my profile here on TikTok. If you're on YouTube, we've got the links right below in the description. It takes a couple of clicks. You verify your identity, or at least that you're not a bot in Discord. And then it's the place the show lives 24/7. You can ask us a question, share what you know, learn, grow, and we say, rise up with others. So those are the best ways to start. And then, I'm going to rug you, Alex. My other favorite resource, if you're new to the cryptocurrency or blockchain space, is coinbase.com/learn. This show is not sponsored by Coinbase, but it should
be.
And honestly, I should say, the disclaimer that we've been really gushing about Evin and Privado tonight, but we're also not sponsored by them. We just love what she does and think she's a total pro.
Yeah, we can save everyone a whole lot of time. We're not sponsored by anybody. we're just nerds.
Listen, man. Fact check yourself, brother. We're going to Emergence next week because our friends at Stellar invited us there to help cover some things and talk about marketing with them. And we've had a lot of fun with our friends at Banana Gun, the folks at Crypto Snapshot. This show is absolutely available for sponsorship, Alex. Don't you rug us like that?
Well,
thank you.
No, but just
much.
Not right now. No, we're just geeks. Nerding out about cool shit, but there's no one's paying us to do any of this right now.
Evin, what about you? Do you have a beginner-friendly resource for people who are just learning about blockchain or cryptocurrency?
So if you have exhausted all of the content and that Rise Up has to offer, and no one else is awake in the Discord when you are trying to look for some more insight, I have a couple other doors for you to open. So as you are exploring the decentralized frontier, especially for women and non-binary folks, I would highly encourage checking out SheFi, which is a curriculum and global ecosystem of women and non-binary people in Web3. They introduce everything from the basics of how to interact with meme coins and wallets and safely explore the financial frontier, all the way to social applications and support services if you want to find a job in crypto or even start your very own company.
Excellent.
First of all,
and go for it.
Bullish on the name. What a home run.
Yeah, have you seen their platform, Alex?
Yes, I'm familiar.
It's cool. It's robust, and I thought for a second when you were introducing our friends who are femme or non-binary to lean in that you were going to drop Boys Club too, which is also a great place that makes conversations about not just crypto but like internet culture super accessible.
Boys Club is absolutely part and parcel my other favorite recommendation, although it's hard to, start with two. You got to say one first. But Boys Club is definitely an outstanding companion. They are sort of the foyer of the frontier of technology, if you will, and a welcoming Discord community alongside podcasts and a newsletter that I think has some of the most hilarious crypto jokes you can find anywhere.
They're hip. They're hip to internet culture for sure. I would love to have the boys on the show. I really, really would.
That seems like a great idea. Should we link? Should we make that happen?
You can give him a nudge. I would love it. I have messaged Kate and I've also messaged Natasha. We have a Telegram chat, me and Natasha, because we were playing Crypto the Game and I was being an informant on what was happening in the Yellow Tribe. And then I've talked to Kate a couple times just because I think she's brilliant. I love her memes, and asked her, come on the show. And she said, let's talk after the start of the year. I think she's got a lot of stuff going on for the holidays. And we're going to see, I did not know this person, but the director of marketing, whose name is escaping me, is going to be at Emergence in Prague, giving a talk. Do you know who that person is off the top of your head, Evin? Because
could it be Miranda?
Miranda, that's right. Miranda,
the human, the myth, the legend, the coordinator of culture, the summoner of degens and baddies alike. Like, I definitely think that you guys will have a lot of fun if you have the opportunity to be in the audience for any of her talks. But definitely keep an eye on her curatorial expertise, because if there's something cool happening, it's probably around Miranda.
Well, thank you so much for that. We'll introduce ourselves when we see her and say, Evin speaks very highly. And I'm sure she already knows. And you can't see this, but we have been joined on TikTok now by our Casey Craig. So Casey, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me. And thank you, Evin, for all of these sweet comments. Much love back your way as well. It's something funny that's been happening for a while, where there's Casey and our badges get mixed up at conferences, and it's a whole thing. So
meet each other now. Casey, Evin, Casey.
Casey, I am so excited to be friends now in this absolutely marvelous meet cute. And so I see for us a long and happy on-chain adventure together.
Likewise.
It's tough because we have you each on video, but in separate locations. So it's kind of like Alex and I are like the hole in the wall in A Midsummer Night's Dream. And
is this Love is Blind? Is this the metaverse?
This is Love is Blind, and we're just gonna leave you guys to have your first date now.
Oh my gosh, it's wild, Casey. This happens to me too. Not obviously because my name is not Casey, but there is another person out there in the world named Evin McMullen, although he spells his name a little differently. He ran for president in the United States a few years ago. And
incredible.
The two of us will occasionally get mixed up by folks who we know in common who live in Washington, D.C. We're friends on LinkedIn. I have one of his campaign t-shirts. So it's all in good fun, but a reminder that verifiable identity is a tricky thing, no matter how you slice it.
Exit Velo said dueling Casey's on the next Rise Up. Go ahead, Al.
I'm just curious because
there's no dueling with the Caseys either. We met each other, we loved each other, we hung out at Consensus this year. She's awesome. So but no, I agree with the DID conversation about all of this. I'm presently just got off of DevCon and now at another event in Thailand, and ZK using ZK and DID has been a massive conversation over the last week over here, and there's a lot of really cool stuff coming. So I've enjoyed this conversation, and I just want to say that it's really front of mind for a lot of people over here that have come off of DevCon as well.
Do you want to give us a sneak peek or a take about some of the stuff that you're learning? I know you've been live on your channel, but we'd love to share with the audience here.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned so much ZK math in the past week that I think my brain is starting to short a little bit. I've had, like calculus for breakfast every day, but there's people who are working on all facets of the things in crypto and Web3 right now here at this event. So it's kind of a unique combination of people where you have like the GigaBrain ZK researchers, you have people who are working on consumer apps and consumer products. One of the products I thought that was really cool that I brought the founder on to TikTok was it's called Poster.fun, and it's a way to empower creators, people who are making memes and content, and she's heavily involved with the base ecosystem, and it's a way for people to get compensated for the work that they're doing. I was chatting with somebody at dinner 2 nights ago about he created a platform for verifiable randomness on chain. So he's working with different lotteries and different influencers who are doing giveaways. And so it's kind of being used for all scales of things for verifiable randomness on the blockchain. So for example, if you ever wanted to do a giveaway and you see that XYZ person won, how do you know that it's actually random and that it's not a rigged system?
Sure.
So it's starting off in different types of lotteries, and then it's moving more into elections and things along that line. And again, all using ZK and some pretty cool cryptography. And so, yeah, there's people working on literally everything here, like major products and protocols. I had somebody from Polygon on over here. I forget who else I've had on TikTok, but yeah, lots of cool stuff going on.
Very cool. And did you have anything you wanted to share or ask Evin? Just regarding the conversation that we've been having tonight?
To be honest, I just joined. I just got out of a meeting, so I joined maybe 10 minutes ago.
Bless
so
you.
I caught the tail end of it, but I'll definitely check out the rest of it.
No, that's very kind of you to join us. I know you're busy and you're in the middle of working, so thank you so much for making time.
Of course.
Yeah. Alex, what's that? Oh, it's a dog. Go ahead.
Yeah, just dogs.
Evin, I don't have the picture on hand, but Alex, something fun that would go in his identity is he at any given time has between 12 and 12,000 dogs at his house, or that he's actively rescuing because he volunteers and has worked for a long time with an animal rescue.
Currently only 6.
Currently only 6, but they have a dog named Arlo right now who's like 7 or 8 days old, Alex, and he's like this big. He's adorable and he's very needy.
7 days, 7 ounces. Teeny.
I can't even, I'm giving Arlo a point. He deserves a point for that.
Gets a point for still being alive.
Oh my gosh, how adorable and fun. Fun Evin lore identity fact. I was once the #1 junior dog handler in the United States when I was in grade school in the 90s.
Wild.
What kind of dog did you handle?
So my grandmother actually is a dog breeder for Polish lowland sheepdogs, which were a rare breed of Polish sheepdog that she had when she was a little kid growing up in Poland that did not really exist in the United States till she brought them here in the 90s. And now they are a beloved member of the American Kennel Club and popular dog breed.
Wow, that's like iconic, Evin. Do you have pictures like that we can go look at of you and the dogs like hanging out and doing like, I don't know, badass dogs?
Oh, it's so niche. Oh my gosh. I've got to wonder whether those servers are even still up. But for a time, there were pictures of me with very large ribbons and very fluffy dogs somewhere floating around the internet. So I'll have to see if I can dig some of those up and share with you guys.
Nice.
But Alex,
Evan,
sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask Alex about the dogs and about what it's like to manage paperwork for so many dogs.
Well, it's pretty much just vet records.
They don't have IDs.
Yeah, everyone is.
So would it be easier if dogs came with digital vet records that were accessible via an app, or is that something you can already experience right now?
First of all, yes, it would be immensely more helpful because the current filing system is about 19,000 pieces of loose leaf paper on the desk of the most unorganized man on earth, in a house with, at any given point, like I have nothing compared to 112, 125. And not all in the same building. It's a 5-acre farm, but there's like probably 30 at any given point that like are camping out in his house or whatever. So it's a nightmare. And yes, absolutely. It's something I've wanted to work on for a long time, just because, I mean, there's so many on-chain applications that could help the situation. I mean, from the work that, still bitter about this, I don't know where it's at right now, but staking, it was a project called CrowdStake that essentially allowed you to commit the APY from your staked Ether to specific things. So instead of having to donate like a lump sum to something, you could take the amount you would like to contribute, stake it on your own behalf, and then dedicate the APY, the staking rewards, to the nonprofit of your choice instead, in any percentage, and split them up and send them to a bunch of different ones. It was all proprietary. It was super cool. It was one of the coolest projects I've ever been a part of. And the implications were just like super. There were so many applications of like dedicating staking rewards like from something to something specific. And so like that is definitely one, like getting people to stake ETH on behalf of the rescue and like fund it that way while also securing the blockchain at the same time was just like really nerdy and cool.
Well, I'm thinking, what about microchips, dude? How easy would it be to pair tokens with what we already do?
No, for sure. I mean, yeah, every dog is chipped, and all of it contains all of that important like contact information and reference and whatever. And that's an I mean, that's a whole other conversation. Just the difficulties of like tracking. We also have
in the comments that it could be called K9YC, which I think is such a wonderful name for this.
That's good. Yeah.
Getting a point for that. Where do you think it could go at?
That was just scrolling, who's now leading in the points category from just like winning with the comments today. But yeah,
just scrolling, killing it.
Like Evin says, I mean, NFC, like it would be immensely helpful. It really
is. There an application you were thinking of?
So for years, I have joked about how we need a decentralized identifier method for pets. And, we have one for, Bitcoin, DID:BTC. We have one for Ethereum, DID:ETHR. Why not DID:PET? And then you could, associate a bunch of data about your pet in a simple and straightforward way. Now, of course, the challenges of testing these types of tools mean that we've got to have a business reason to put things on chain and to be able to use these capabilities. But the fact that pets do not have the same data privacy protections as humans actually, I think, could be a positive thing for the composability and openness of our networks.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I'd be down to brainstorm that kind of stuff later, because it's one of the things I do think about. I try to tie, a lot of the stuff back to like, okay, how can I use this to help the rescue? Because it's just like, it's like every independent nonprofit that gets $0 in funding from anything other than private donations, it's always struggling. And like anything to just make any piece of it more efficient or whatever would be not only useful for us, but then like something that's widely applicable to a gajillion other rescues that are in the exact same situation.
Business efficiency, turns out that can help everybody, even puppies.
Hell yeah. If it helps the puppies, I mean, dude,
for the puppies, guys. That's one of the many reasons we build on chain.
Okay, so we're getting to that time where it's about time to ride our dogs and ponies off into the sunset. We got a couple minutes left on the show. So I want to invite everybody to, if you have final questions, send them in. Get ready, folks, on the panel. Evin, I'm gonna invite you to give your last thought. Casey, give your last thought, question, suggestion, good joke, word of wisdom in a minute. And we will go through the points totals. Shocker, Evin is ahead. And I don't mean me. But there's lots of time for people to make up in points. I'm going to give Casey a point just for being here. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and give her 2. And I want to ask you, Evin, feel free to share any other final thought after this, but one of the questions that we get all the time, and people have shared it with us throughout the live, is probably the most common question. Generally speaking, you don't spend a lot of time on TikTok, so I'll go ahead and tell you, you may not be surprised unless you may already know this, that the quality of crypto content, we said before we started recording, on TikTok especially, is just unhelpful. And there are a lot of people here because they're interested in trying to speculate. They're interested in learning how to invest in crypto and do it safely. And one of the things we always really like to ask people who work in this industry, do you invest also in cryptocurrency? Like, you hold cryptocurrency tokens that you buy with money?
I do.
Okay. What are some of the things that you do to either keep yourself safe, or, with the caveat for folks at home, like we're not financial advisors. We can't tell you what to buy, but I always like to ask people, how do you assess whether there is a project, an investment opportunity, a token that you're considering spending more time with? How do you get to know it? And what kind of questions do you ask yourself? Because you probably have more access than most people watching TikTok, do you call someone up and speak to the founder? And how do you invite people who might be hearing about this kind of stuff left and right everywhere they go on Twitter and TikTok? This token's going to do 100x. That token's going to do 100x. Before they go out and spend their money on something, especially money they can not afford to lose, to just, I don't know, either be safe or make better choices. Treat this stuff like companies, learn about it, and what's your best bet for it to help people from getting wrecked here amid the speculation?
I think it's always a great reminder that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. My recommendation for playing on chain and playing it safe is that you make sure you're not doing it alone. Blockchains are multiplayer games. That means that they're more fun, more successful when we do them together, whether that's from a literal infrastructure perspective or in terms of exploring and learning about new teams and new projects. So exactly as you invite your listeners and audience members here to do, exploring, documentation about these projects, listening to podcasts from the founders, talking to folks who might be directly involved. Those are all really great choices. But we also need to remember that there is no amount of early question asking from behind your keyboard that is going to be more rigorous than proven outcomes in the market. So definitely not financial advice, but if you're interested in exploring or buying, cryptocurrencies over time, my recommendation would be that you think about, more sort of established time and value in currencies like Ethereum and Bitcoin as very different from more risk on or sort of dopamine fueled capital systems, like things like meme coins. I would not encourage anyone to go to Twitter as their primary source of information, especially because a lot of times by the time that things are trending on Twitter, that information is old, stale, and no longer relevant to the immediate market moment.
Excellent. Thank you. I have to give one more point to Just Scrolling, who said, I wrote a new zero knowledge ebook for crypto newbies. Surprise, it has no knowledge in it. Thank you, Just Scrolling. Casey, since I know you're probably, it's morning there? You're still out east, yeah?
Yeah, it's morning.
You're about to get started with your day, I imagine, or you're taking a break or something?
Yeah, taking a break. Been up and going for a while.
Well, then let me kick it to you and say, do you have a final thought, a question, suggestion, a good joke, word of wisdom for the audience?
No, I just want to echo what Evin said. Whenever you're getting started in this space, it's really, really easy to fall victim to shiny object syndrome, or maybe, getting wowed by the things that people with lots of followers say on Twitter, or even TikTok and a lot of other places where, either they were a paid shill of that project or they may not understand that project. And just because somebody has followers doesn't make them a good investor. And so the things that are going to be important for you to learn how to do are to, like Evin said, evaluate the documentation, if you look at these companies like you look at stocks, you wouldn't just invest into a stock because you like the name of it, right? There's a company behind it that needs to provide real value, that needs to generate real cash flow. And so whenever you're looking at crypto assets, another common adage that you'll hear in the space is, if you don't understand where the yield or the profits are coming from for the project, it is you. And so make sure that these companies and these projects that you're investing in are actually doing something and that it's sustainable. And so those are two things things that are very easy to do, but very easily overlooked in the space where you say, XYZ person was talking about this latest AI project, and it really doesn't do anything. And oftentimes it's like a ChatGPT wrapper, and it's not a real product doing the thing that you think it is. And there's no value accrual anywhere. And so anyway, I could go on a whole rant about this, especially with the TikTok side of things, but go read the documentation of these things, find out what the project does, how is it sustainable, and does it make any real money aside from you?
And I would love for you to give us a resource where people can look for that kind of proof in the pudding. Where do you look for revenue? Where do you look for value?
Yeah, check on, I'd say like 2 quick places is just go read the white paper and find out what's the revenue model for this product. So, whenever we talk about the documentation of projects, go onto that project's website, go find the docs or documentation section, and you'll find the white paper. And that will tell you what the project is, what does it do from a kind of a fundamental perspective, and then from a tech perspective. And it'll give you the revenue model there. Or there's other resources that you can track these things, like on DeFi Llama and on Dune, you can find, depending on what the project is, but go to like DeFi Llama is where you can find a lot of revenue information about projects.
Yeah, that's also, the show is not sponsored by DeFi Llama, but it should be, because we use them all the time to look up on-chain TVL revenue information. And then do you know the URL for Dune? Is it an IO? I forget. It's a great analytics dashboard.
It's Dune.com.
Dune.com. Yeah, both great websites. You can use them totally for free. And I like to tell people that DeFi Llama even allows you to sort protocols by whether or not they are compliant to halal standards. So if you are a person who is practicing the Islamic faith, there is DeFi for you, according to DeFiLlama.com. How niche and wonderful,
Extremely.
Okay, Evin, as our honored guest, do you have a oh no, I can't get your final thought yet. I have to do this. I have to do the point totals. Okay, listen, hang on. The point totals stand as follows. Buenos Aires has 1 point for every person in the nation. India has 1 point for every person in the nation ahead of Buenos Aires. So sorry, Buenos Aires. Alex, you and I were tied at 2 points. Casey also got 2 points, and I'm going to give her a 3rd point because she, made time out of her schedule to be here. Just Scrolling has 3 points from the comments, and our runaway winner tonight with 9 points is, in fact, our guest, Evin McMullen. Congratulations. You are the winner of all the points and our eternal gratitude on this week's episode of Rise Up After Dark. Thank you so much. I have nothing for you except that.
It is always an honor and a delight to be able to hang with you guys. And anytime that you want to start giving away those point totals on chain, you just let me know, and we can create some proofs of accomplishment and proofs of participation. I know those are, experiments that we've thought about in past iterations, but overall, really appreciate the opportunity to share more with your community, to remind everyone that cryptocurrency is one of many use cases for cryptography, and that we are securing a lot more than just meme coins with decentralized infrastructure.
Excellent. And I was reminded by someone in the audience that the other Casey Craig did get a point, which is not as many points as you, Casey. The Casey of her.
And Evin, that was also pointed out by Just Scrolling, which feels just fitting.
Oh my gosh.
Coming for our jobs.
Legendary. We love to see it. Oh my gosh. Well, the meme is the message. Just scrolling. Keep scrolling. We love you.
Keep scrolling. We love you. Evin, did you have any other final thoughts, questions, suggestions, good jokes, words of wisdom, or asks for our audience before we close it down?
Always, I would encourage you that, if you have taken something valuable from this conversation, if you have learned something new about decentralized identity or blockchains, please do not keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend along with this episode. And we can't wait to hear what questions come up or what ideas you have as a result of talking about it. You can drop those in the Discord for the Rise Up community.
Man, look at you. You could become the next host of the Rise Up Morning Show. We appreciate the commercial. And I would return to say that if you have questions for Evin, you need to leave them on Twitter at Proven Authority or check out Privado.id. Really cool use cases on the website. We just love it. And Alex, man, I'm not going to rug you. I know you have a final thought, something for us before we ride our dogs and ponies off into the sunset.
Yeah, actually, a brief one that I had a little click moment as I was listening to Chris Do tell me about why my marketing sucks earlier today, and I just realized that the marketing rule that he had was applicable to crypto, like in a really specific way that I thought was interesting. I've never thought about it this way, so I'll leave you with this. He was commenting on the difference between trends and fads and how we misuse the term trend a lot. And an example of a way that this is playing out right before our very eyes right now would be with something like the chill guy meta in meme coins. And
sure.
Whenever anything in crypto pops off and crushes, you get the derivative wave that follows afterwards. And so the trend, the broad niche could be the meme coin trend. Meme coins are trending hard.
Sure.
Inside of there, you have these little sub trends. You have like Doge, which kicked off all of these dog themed everythings and 5 million dog coins. Then you have Chill Guy, which has now kicked off this fad of chill mom, chill friend, not chill, like chill millions of things. So the lesson there is look for the trends, avoid the fads, because the fads just get you wrecked way more often than they do anything else for you.
Hey man, I'm sorry the game is over, or I would have given you, how many points? I would have given you 8 points for that answer. You could have won if you had said that sooner.
Well, I would have needed 1.49 billion points to pass India.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think that...
Yeah. Fact check yourself, brother. Sorry, I forgot about India. I guess technically they did beat us. Well, and then my final thought is just to say thank you so much again for tuning in to Rise Up After Dark. If you want more of the show, we're going to be back tomorrow. Even on Thanksgiving, it'll be the gratitude, the gobble special for our friends who are celebrating in the United States. And from everyone everywhere else around the world, come and be grateful with us. Come hang out if you have the time. Ask your crypto questions, and we say rise up with us. In the meantime, check out the Discord at discord.gg/riseup or all the resources at the riseupmorningshow.com. We've got plenty of good stuff for you. All that's missing is you. Thank you again, Evin, so much for being here with us. Alex, thank you. Casey, thank you for making time. And my friends, we'll see you next week. Until then, everybody, rise up. And